I'd hate for you to miss. Ah, okay, so try to invite your mind to join your body in this room, letting go of the busyness of getting here or whatever you're thinking about for later. Just let yourself be here. Hi, Puerto Rico. Uh, so I try to remind yourself of why you're interested in spiritual paths. You know, what is it that hooks you? I read one of the verses somewhere talks about um, Shakyamuni Buddha when he was in a hell realm in a previous life, offered to help the person next to him who was also struggling with whatever horrible hell realm activity they had to do, and offered to help. And I thought, man, I want a mind like that, that it missed all this suffering for yourself, that your first thought is, how can I help this other person? I'm not like that. So that was my hook. And I stayed because I found that really paying attention to my activities of body, speech, and mind helped me have fewer regrets. So I sleep better at night. So think about your hook and rejoice that you have one. It's a wonderful example of our good qualities that we want to develop, our hearts, our minds. Towards skillful actions. I'm going to try to generate a positive motivation to use this time well, particularly with respect to why you're here. And combine it with the wish that it not just benefit you and your life, but that it ripples out to benefit others around you. So let's recite the 4 measurables, which will be up on the screen in a minute. And then it's on page 34 of the Gold Prayer Book. None of your computer screen looks like mine. All these tabs, all this, all the opens. Okay. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And then the Refuge and Bodhicitta prayer on page 98. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. What's on your mind? Emptiness. Emptiness of what? So not emptiness of desire.
Desire to realize.
Yeah, that's a good thing to desire.
That's a good desire.
Yeah, that's a good desire. You know, it's like wanting to become like the Buddha. You know, that's a good desire. You know, there's a reason for that. Attachment, that quality of attachment, which is that exaggeration of the good qualities of something and wanting to have it, you know, clinging after that. You can't exaggerate the good qualities of a Buddha. You can't exaggerate the good qualities of wisdom, of realizing emptiness, you know. So there's no, you know, disturbing emotion that's present with that mind. Now, of course, we samsaric beings can corrupt anything. So, you know, people certainly have unwholesome thoughts about their wanting to be like this or that because they just want fame or, you know, recognition or adoration, you know, who knows, but, you know, if it's a true, I've got myself all. I'm heavy. Okay, I need one of those little, if they made, you know, those robotic vacuums that could hold lots of heavy things on it, I'd have one. And then I could just scooch me around. So that's the reason behind why it's why we can have desire for good qualities. And if we're not combining them with some sort of prideful or greedy or, you know, motivation, then, you know, it's a wholesome desire. So, so emptiness. So realizing wisdom, you know, wisdom is the last of the perfections. So we have, you know, we've talked about generosity, we've talked about ethics, we've talked about patience, we've talked about, well, have we talked much about joyous effort? I tend to skip that. Whenever I had to memorize a list, if I was missing one, I could pretty much bet it was going to be joyous effort. I mean, that's just a fact. You know, but the perseverance, the willingness to keep at it, keep trying to do these changes, to develop our wisdom, to develop bodhicitta. And then, so then you need concentration. And one of the reasons that joyous effort is before, or perseverance is before concentration, is because you need it in order to develop concentration, because it's hard. So you need to keep wanting it and want it, and be kind of like, okay, so it's hard. So I don't know what I'm doing. So that's okay. So these support each other. So generosity helps us counter attachment. A willingness to give away things is a way to stop clinging to things. Possessions is mine, so generosity helps with that. Ethics helps with not wanting to harm. It helps to have less attachment in order to be able to not want to do any harm. So that if someone steals all your stuff, you still don't want to harm them. So these build on each other. Then what's next? Patience. Patience is that support, for not wanting to do harm, because, that's that attitude of no matter what, I will accept the suffering that arises in my mind, so that I don't retaliate, so that I have my response to harm is skillful, not harmful, because that just keeps the cycle going. When someone yells at you and you yell back, what happens? It just keeps going. Just the argument ensues. So it's important to be able to not react in kind, Then you need perseverance in order to be able to keep working with our minds, to keep going, okay, lost it today, maybe, I'll try harder tomorrow, whatever, you need that kind of willingness to accept, that's part of the patience thing, is we have to be patient with ourselves as well. We don't beat ourselves up for not being Buddhas yet, we just, accept our mistakes and make the decision to try to do better. Yeah.
Is joyous effort and perseverance based on faith of conviction?
That helps. So if you have, this is the first steps in Buddhism, according to the to being able to work with our minds and all this stuff, is to listen to teachings, study them, read them. You may not, we live in a time of lots of books, easy access, so you want to listen or read, then you want to contemplate them. You don't want to just read a good book and go, oh, that was a nice book. I feel better when I read that book, but you don't learn anything. You just, oh, this is nice. We want to think about how it says this. Do I think that's true? If I look at my life, can I find evidence of experience that says that's true? And then when you hit a spot where you feel like, yeah, I think that's true, you want to meditate on it. You want to put your constant focus on it and let it sink in without distraction. You want to develop that confidence in the truth of a teaching. And it has to come from your own experience of its truth. And so that takes time. When we make mistakes, even when we're doing that, we have to, it's a process, and we don't get it all at once. So we may, 5 years from now, be reading the same thing and kind of understand it in a whole new way because of the other things we've learned along the way. So it's this continuous assessment we make of, oh, is this a skillful mind? Is this a skillful action? Let me think about this, kind of thing. It's not static, because you think about it, how you're going along and maybe your life's going pretty good at the moment, and everything's kind of easy and da 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 da. And 3 years later, you get hit with something that's really hard to handle. And you realize, oh, I haven't been practicing patience. I haven't been practicing these things. I've just been in control of a lot that's been going on. So everything's been going fine, So then you have to kind of go, oh, okay, this is humbling, but back to work. So it's a way of just where it's impermanence, isn't it? And so this thing of this process of listening and reflecting and then meditating is a way to help us go deeper with things, so we remember, so that it's so when we're just thinking about something like, oh, what should I do, that wisdom might bubble up. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So
I had that experience recently where I realized thankfully, I'll go for refuge in the teachings when I'm experiencing a difficulty or challenge. But when it gets really tough, I realized, oh, I didn't go there.
Yeah. And this is what we do. And we have to keep learning and keep trying and kind of noticing. I mean, it's so important that we notice, oh, I didn't do that. And look at the result. If that didn't work out too well. So, and if nothing else, I felt terrible. Sometimes it's as simple as that we recognize that our lack of choosing a response instead of, that we just react with whatever habit we have doesn't feel good. It has crummy results for ourselves, by just having that mind of anger or impatience or hurt or whatever, that we just go there instead. And that's not pleasant. That's one of the things that, if we're constantly kind of noticing what's going on in our minds and whether it feels okay or not, so when you feel disturbed, that's that clue. Okay, I'm not going to be very reliable in this moment because I'm already agitated, So pause, give yourself space to choose your next word or your next action, or choose to do nothing at all. So, and with practice, this all happens very quickly. Just like our mind seems to get ahead of us all the time. And actually, we think it's our mouth that's getting ahead of us. We don't realize the mind's way far ahead of that, and your speech is just being driven by that mind that's so quick. And it's so habitual that we not even aware it's come up. It's just something, it's like we're running on that energy under, beneath the, what appears to us. So it's just, so we have to look and we get used to looking, and then we can go, I'm getting a little uncomfortable here. What's going on? Am I afraid? Am I impatient? Am I angry? Am I whatever? Is it, I'm not getting what I want? Am I feeling greedy? But there's just something there, that we need to, kind of address before we make the choice of how to act or respond. It means we slow things down a little bit, because our habits are quick. Some of those, and sometimes that's a good thing, reflexes. When you're driving a car and, you just automatically react, so that you slow down or you kind of pull over or you realize that the person, whatever. So it's a good thing that we have that ability to do it. But when it's working with our minds, the good news is we can pause. We also have that ability. So we don't have to choose to just follow the habit when it's not driving your car or whatever, So, wisdom. So this is what we're trying to develop, you know. And so in just day-to-day reality, the kind of wisdom we need to develop is the wisdom of knowing what's skillful and what's not skillful, what's gonna, you know, be better for us in the long run and better for others in the long run, or what would immediately feel satisfying, you know, and is perhaps unskillful. Because sometimes that immediate thing that we want to do is skillful. You know, we want to rush to help someone who's in trouble. We want to, you know, chase after the child that's gone out into the street. You know, that, you know, so that instinct, so to speak, that's just a habit. It's a very strong habit, you know, is a good one. But, you know, so it's not like we question every response that we have, but we want to have that wisdom to be able to tell. Is this a smart move? Is this a, you know, just, you know, I'm just pissed. I'm just going to get mad, or I'm just hurt. And so I'm going to sulk. That's not a word. Okay. I have to think of some other word. I can't think of a word. Sulk. Be sulky. My word's better. Anyway. So there's a, you know, these are the things, you know, it's not like all our instincts are terrible, you know. If that were the case, we wouldn't have Buddha nature, you know, but we have Buddha nature. We have these qualities that are wonderful to follow. You know? But even then, sometimes we have to, you know, go, okay, do I have to rescue my child from learning how to drive? You know, they don't do this anymore, do they? Tie their shoe, you know, or can I just patiently wait while they struggle with this, you know, instead of just hurrying them along, you know, by doing it for them. So, you know, so our motive matters. You know, why we're doing something. We have to get familiar with why we do things, because that's when we start to notice that some of our methods are perhaps manipulative. We're just trying to get things to go our way. You know, so our speech is sort of like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. But, you know, this also, you know, we're trying to, you know, change someone's mind to fit what we want. So we want to look out for that. It's like the same thing with the kids, you know, like letting them learn how to do something, but actually we're kind of over it and we just want to get going. You know, so it's really that we really just want, you know, we can say, oh, I'm just trying to help. But what we're really doing is I'm trying to hurry you up. So, and of course, there are times when you need to do that. That's another part of wisdom. So basically, people ask me all the time, well, what should I do? It depends. It depends on a lot of different factors and conditions. And so we need to get to know ourselves, be mindful of those around us, so that we can use all that information to make good choices for ourselves and others. And it seems complicated, but it actually isn't. We've been doing it our whole lives, picking up on clues. You know, we all got good at picking up if one of our parents was kind of upset, you know, and we kind of changed our behavior at home that night to just kind of like make sure they don't yell at us. So, you know, we're actually pretty good at that. We do it with bosses at work. You know, we just kind of, you know, we can tell and, oh, okay, you know, danger. You change your behavior. We all certainly alter our speech when we're at work. We're totally able to do this. What we need to do is be able to check into our minds and go, is this really the direction I want to go in? You know, and be able to discern is, you know, that because what we've been chasing our whole lives is how not to suffer and how to be happy. And we misunderstand what brings happiness and what brings suffering. You know, it's our unskillful actions that bring us suffering, not right away, but over time. You know, It's our skillful actions that bring us meaning, that sense of, feeling good about how you're spending your time. Yeah.
It also seems that the unskilled actions stick with you. They stay in your memory forever. Whereas the skillful
That's because we practice guilt.
yeah.
I don't recommend it. It's not helpful. They say that humans have a tendency to gravitate towards the negative. We notice the negative, and there's some reasons for that, of course. Back when we were living in jungles and, we were in danger a lot, from wild animal, what we call wild animals. They're just at home, there's so, but we had, these reactions to protect the body, to help us, then we had methods, we developed methods to tell whether plants were poisonous or not poisonous, all sorts of things, so we learned all these clues, about it. And so it becomes so habituated in those that, it becomes instinctual, it's just, but it's a habit. What was your question? I got lost.
I felt that the unskilled actions
Are what we
stick more
remember.
with me.
Yeah. Well, and this is so we have a habit of the negative, of like dwelling on the negative. And that can be useful, but we also need to notice all our good qualities, all our skillful behavior. Those are the ones we want to repeat. So, the wonderful thing about the purification practice in Buddhism, this is where you acknowledge, ooh, screwed up, and then you regret it, that you're really sorry for the harm that it caused, whether it's a little thing or a big thing, you're sorry. And then you do some practice or something as a remedy. It might be an apology to the person if it's appropriate, and then you resolve to work hard at not doing this tomorrow or for the next hour, depending on what the habit is, but you don't pack it in a suitcase and carry it around for the rest of your life. Guilt is not helpful. Oh, did we have a spill? Do we have a towel anywhere or paper towels or? That's a water bowl towel. You don't want to use those. Oh, we might, but I don't know.
Got one.
Thank you.
It's finding our weak spots where we're like our hot buttons.
Yeah.
That sets us off. Is that something that?
And that's where we want to get to, like right now, many of us we're very aware of our hot spots after the fact, right? And we want to start to notice before that, where we're starting to just feel slightly uncomfortable, and then that's the warning signal. Caution, caution, because then we're not reliable, So we want to be able to give ourselves space to recognize a button of mine's just been pushed. Because often when our buttons are pushed, they're not being pushed by the people who where we created that button, So there may not be any need to react to it at all. But we just have to hold it. We kind of have to go, oh, I'm uncomfortable, and just be okay with that. Not feel guilty about having buttons, and not feeling guilty about being sensitive to this or that or da, 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 da. But be able to give ourselves space to really look at what's true, what's not true. Is this person trying to hit my button? And even if that's true, what can I do with that information? We need space to be able to do that. So we need to be able to catch ourselves early on so that we don't just immediately, that we don't let it go to that point of just reacting and then have things we regret. we say things or do things or just, we don't have enough information to move forward. You know, and that takes time and practice. You know, we really just need to recognize that we're vulnerable and recognize that our ignorance propels us to do things that actually don't work out well. Our ignorance being that we think things exist as they appear to exist. So like, for example, someone kind of gets up against one of your buttons, you know, and we exaggerate the motives of the other person. They're just evil jerks, not nice, whatever. And we make that their whole, you know, that's all they are. You know, and so they just become an enemy. We also are saying to ourselves, I can't handle it. You know, and we make that the whole story. You know, and so we give ourselves not enough credit to be able to handle whatever discomfort it is, or to work on whatever issue we, you know, it's triggered for us, or, you know, whatever. We kind of write off people. Oh, I'm just not going to spend time with this person, you know, or whatever. We make some judgment, and then we might even spread rumors about that person at work. You know, it's just, it's all, you know, it just gets out of control. Or we embrace it as saying something about ourselves. I'm just a terrible person. I'm so weak. I'm so whatever. I mean, you know, whatever the story is. So, you know, we need to be able to recognize when we do those things, you know, because we can work with that. We can't control other people, but we can work with our own mind, our own response to things. And what we think was protecting us all this time, you know, as we develop these habits, may turn out to be not protective at all. Whereas if we come up with newer strategies of keeping our heart open, not thinking that, you know, just because somebody even says something mean to us, that somehow we're bad, that's, you know, not true. You know, we don't want to exaggerate things for ourselves. That's the trouble. When we get averse to something, you know, like what somebody said or someone else's habits or whatever, we exaggerate the negative stuff. We do it.
How we react.
I haven't gotten there yet. You know, so that's what aversion is. It's an exaggeration of the negative. Attachment's an exaggeration of the positive, you know. We do it to ourselves. And we end up on a roller coaster, you know, depending on these judgments. Oh, this person said something really nice to me. I like them, you know. And so we, you know, and the next day they're in a bad mood. And, you know, and none of it has any meaning. Because we're seeing this sliver of a moment as somehow being a whole person or a whole event. We have no idea what's going on with each other, you know, especially like coworkers. You don't live with them. They're not, you know, it's just, it doesn't actually reflect what they think of us, if they think of us at all. I hate to bring that up, but you know. So we want to get a handle on this constant play between the external things and ourselves. You know, that our hearts and minds are our hearts and minds, not the toys other people play with. We create our hearts and minds. They're habits of our minds. So someone else saying something hurtful to us is only hurtful to us if, you know, only could, you know, maybe should be hurtful to us. And that's a terrible word to use. So I'll try to come up with a better phrase in the future. But, you know, in other words, we check it out. Is there anything true about what was just said? Am I something, you know, whatever it is? You never take me into account. You have to go, oh, is that true? And then you look, oh, you know, well, most of the time I take you into account, you know? So then you don't have to take on those words as having meaning beyond, I'm suffering and I'm attacking you for it. Oh, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what we need to learn how to do. Because they're also in their little world hurting, using unskillful techniques, you know. So then, like, you know, Steve was saying, you know, then we learn to pause and choose a response instead of just react, you know. But it's like, have you ever had a friend or known someone who seems to just not seem to be bothered by harsh words or anything, you know, and they're able to like look at the other person like, what's going on with you? You know, and have come from a genuine place of concern. And you think, oh man, how do they do that? This is how they do it. They don't close their hearts, you know. So it's quite the challenge. But it's a learning process. Yeah.
I've had issues with, I'm gonna just explain it the best way, how I'm experiencing it or experienced it with someone that is constantly negative.
Yeah.
And eventually it started aiming in my direction. I no longer converse with this person at all.
Yeah.
And I still have this attachment with them. Like, even though.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, really. But how do you know when can you decide, or when is it a good time to decide that the attachment isn't the reason why you're separating yourself from this person? Because they just.
Okay, I have to understand what you mean by attachment. So we're talking about someone here who has difficulties with someone who's negative or appears to be negative all the time.
Yes.
You know, and so what do you mean by attached?
Okay, so we had a friendship.
Okay, so you had a relationship. So
yes.
Okay,
and
so you like having it.
To that relationship.
Yep.
Is not
necessarily like actually liking the person.
Yeah, like at some point that just diminished. Like their true.
So you have to add. Okay. So we have to ask ourselves when we have clues like that, what are we attached to?
Right.
You know? What comes to mind for you even? What are you attached to? Maybe you're attached to having a relationship.
Yeah.
And you miss having the relationship. Most of us can relate to that, you know? And so sometimes we have to be able to tolerate the suffering that comes from loss, you know, and accept that that's just the way it has to be at this time. Because the relationship's too hurtful, you know? And that's hard. It's not easy to let go. Everybody must be freezing. It is freezing in certain spots.
Fluctuate. I was warm and then suddenly I got chilly.
Yeah, yeah. You know.
Ooh, what are we thinking
Yep.
about?
Function, relative equanimity. is eliminating
Can you speak up?
function of equanimity of developing it, be eliminating the attachment to those who like and eliminating the aversion to those who don't like that come under.
Yeah, but that doesn't help much with relationships. You know, so yes, we need equanimity. Equanimity helps us recognize that our attachment is skewing our point of view, that aversion is skewing our point of view. You know, like sometimes we want to treat someone unfairly because we just don't like them, you know? And we have to check ourselves going, okay, I'm a teacher here. I can't treat some students this way because I just don't like them. We don't like everybody. Doesn't mean they're bad people. We just, you know, we're just not compatible with their style or whatever. Or we just don't like them. Whatever. We don't have to have any, you know, grand thing, but it doesn't matter whether we like someone or not as far as how we treat them. You know, we need to take responsibility for that part. You know, everybody doesn't have to please us in order to be treated well. You know, so that's important. But within relationships, you know, we have to see, I need to be treated well. There's nothing in it for me. Now, when it's your kids, you don't have a choice. You're stuck with that. You know, they're your kids. You know, so you have to be a lot more skillful. Doesn't mean you take up, you know, and take any behavior that's done as acceptable. You know, but just like you're capable of loving your child even when you don't like them, you know, we want to develop that attitude towards all sentient beings. Most of us aren't anywhere close to that, and that's normal. This is a process. We just need to recognize that sometimes what is the hook, what makes us stuck, isn't the person at all. It's like a relationship. We like that. We don't want to let that go. So we'll stay in something that's not healthy for us way past the use by date, you know, just because we don't want to not have a relationship. Almost everybody who went through high school in this country understands this, you know, when Valentine's Day comes around, when, you know, it's like, you know, people won't break up with people, you know, before the holidays, or because I want a date for them, you know. We're crazy people, but that's all right. So these are the things we want to notice because our gut's telling us some of this information. That longing is a clue that we're grasping, we're clinging, you know, and that's what we want to be, you know, really aware of. We can't change other people. We can't even change samsara. We can, you know, what we have to do is work with it. You know, do we want to become a better person because of this event, or a more distrusting, suspicious, standoffish person? I don't know, I'm making this up as I go. So, you know, so we have to decide, how do we want to how do I want to respond as a human being who's on a spiritual path, who, you know, to these situations.
Is there an opposite to a hot button, a warm button? What does that person like? What makes them?
I don't know.
Okay.
I was also thinking in reference to what you said before about being in a relationship, may it be a family, and one just knows your soft spot and keeps pushing the button.
Mhm.
To understand that that's what's happening and not reacting to it, but to see that that person needs to
Why would
push my
someone-
button.
Why? Yeah. So how do we keep ourselves open to, say, a family member, because we're kind of stuck with them, you know, that seems to have always negative, you know, who seems to like to push our buttons or whatever? How can we stay kind.
Realize that they are suffering and they have problems. And I guess kind of putting yourself in their shoes.
Well, you take yourself out of the picture. You know, do you have, it's not about you.
Yeah, it's her story.
It's her story. Now we can treat her as if she doesn't count. Or,
Let her have her story.
and also maybe work with her story, you know, kind of like try to get to know this person better and what's going on with them. May not be possible. You may have to just be kind of inwardly like, well, I'm glad I can be of service. You know? Is that a hand raise? Yes, go for it. Yeah,
I'm thinking about what His Holiness the Dalai Lama said about that you can align yourself with your enemy, and so I started thinking about that, and then I realized that he, as a young person, left the people that were persecuting him.
Yep.
Because he was being self-caring.
Yep.
He may have compassion, but he still left them.
Yep.
Because they would have destroyed him.
Well, they would have destroyed Buddhism,
Mhm.
Tibetan Buddhism. That's was his motivation to leave.
Mhm.
You know, was that, you know, the Dharma could disappear if none of the teachers of the Dharma escaped from Tibet.
So my question is, then you can leave
Yes.
someone and be compassionate.
Absolutely. We have to do it all the time. You know, I mean, this is, you know, why we have these whole movements about codependence and da 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 da. You know, I mean, you know, we don't need to tolerate unsafe behavior. What we do instead, though, I mean, so often is that we don't tolerate the person. Instead of it's the behavior that's not tolerable, you know. And it doesn't mean we can help all the time. Sometimes our presence is the worst thing, you know. So, you know, we all know that with addiction. You need to, usually you need someone who knows what they're doing to help someone with addiction, and you're not it, you know. So, it's the same thing with all these things.
Mm.
So when you're raising children, it's hard. When you're in relationships, it's hard because people have all sorts of stuff, you know. So being discerning and not reactive helps us have relationships, maintain a sense of love and compassion and kindness and all those things while we're in them. Instead of what often arises is a whole lot of greed. Oh, I want this. Why can't you treat me better? Blah, blah, blah. All that kind of stuff, and we don't make it workable. Most things, let's face it, we all do a lot of work in life, with people, and sometimes, one of the mistakes we make is we may feel like when we get home, we shouldn't have to work so hard. Big mistake. You spend the most time with that. You really should work hard at it. So, oh, I should just be able. My father used to do that all the time. Oh, I just want to come home to a happy home. And what have you done for us lately? So, I mean, it's an interdependent thing. Everything is interdependent. Now, this does not mean it's like this, like what Graziella is bringing up. Self-care is important. Until we're Buddhas, we can be seriously hurt by others. Maybe before we're Buddhas even, but people can beat up and kill their partner. I mean, it happens constantly. You know, the number one cause, person that a woman, who's married, or actually is not even married, but, murders of women in this country are their partners. I mean, that's just the way it is. So it's not like, we don't need to take care. We do need to take care. And we need help taking care. And what does that mean? Sometimes we have to voice it because we're not supported by the government. Whatever. I mean, these are not simple matters. People run into really very difficult problems. So we need to learn how to be self-contained, where we can not be reactive to everything, but be able to go, okay, I need to use my wisdom here. I need to, use my good qualities here. I need to, give myself space to really reflect on what's the next course of action. Because it's not simple all the time. Fortunately, most of the time it is simpler than that. So, does that help at all?
I was thinking of, for example, all this criticism about Mr. Biden. So people don't have to like Mr. Biden, but the actions matter. So that he steers the country in a direction that is helpful is what we should look at, and not who Mr. Biden is.
Well, yeah, whether, if it's dynamic or something, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, it's like, I remember way back when, do you remember when, who was the younger George Bush? Was George W. the senior, or
George W. is the kid.
the kid?
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember at some point in his campaign, it was like, he's the kind of guy you want to have a beer with. And I'm thinking, yeah, and that's who I want to run the country.
Yeah.
That just didn't strike me as but this is what we fall for, isn't it? Because we do want to like them. We don't want to be embarrassed. And I can tell you, I've had that experience of being embarrassed by who's the president of our country. Well, that's the same kind of garbage, So, we have to recognize these things like, okay, those are hard. And we, one thing that we often do is we just turn it off. We don't, and I understand I haven't answered the phone in, I don't know, a year, because it's all, please give us more money for this candidate, so anyway. But if we want, to have a voice in external matters, we need to vote. That's just a fact. We can blame people but if we don't participate, we're part of the problem. If we participate, we're part of the problem. We're all already part of it. This is all interdependent. So, we can't, this is again, that tendency to just blame this group or that group, it's their fault, blah, 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 It's not true.
But it's a reflection, as you said, because if I see that on the outside, it's for me, taking a responsibility for my actions.
Okay, I missed that whole conversation.
Yeah.
No, I want to know. I want to understand. I just didn't get that.
Well,
when you see something on,
no, like it's bigger picture, so we see what's going on out there.
Yeah, it reflects. Right? Yes,
yeah, it reflects who I am also. That
yeah,
I need to take.
We're all part of it.
It's about actions.
Yeah, and actions start with mental actions. So the more we can keep our mind in a calm place, recognizing that every moment of events are not the end all be all of anything, so it's worthwhile. You think about people who've worked their entire lives to improve civil rights, human rights. They work their whole lives for it. If they just were looking for success, they would have burnt out a long time ago. It's more of a process and understanding that you're dealing with other people. So it's also a process. It's all about, it's all people. So it's not just like we can't change just like that. Neither can anybody else. And society's even slower to change because it's, oh my goodness, even when a law goes into effect, it's 3 years later that it can be implemented. Everything is slow. And when you're talking about a group process. So patience is very helpful. Perseverance is very helpful. Not losing the object. Concentration is very helpful. We need these skills, and wisdom obviously is very helpful. So it's and thinking that we can not get hurt is not realistic. We're vulnerable. Our bodies, good grief, I can't walk across a room without getting new bruises. We're vulnerable. We lose people. Relationships change. Everything's impermanent. And in the end, we all die. It's just so amazing just to think about 100 years from now, all of us will be dead. It's the way it is. 150 years from now, everybody on the planet will be dead. Probably even less time than that, but Elaine.
Just a quick question about attachment, okay? Or forget about attachment, just call it a bond you have with somebody that's a strong connection. Maybe like the circumstances change, people move away, people die, whatever, things are impermanent. But does that bond really get destroyed or go away, or is that just always there?
You think it was always there?
Yeah, if it's an
How about an eon ago?
I'm sorry?
How about an eon ago?
I don't understand.
Well, you're talking about this life, right?
Yeah.
So you have a bond with someone, like some people, manage to keep up with their high school friends for decades, and every time they see them, it's like no time has passed. I have friends like that.
Right. Exactly.
So you think it's permanent?
What I'm asking is, we're energy, like our consciousness is energy, and a bond.
Our consciousness is not physical, so it's not energy.
Okay, but forget attachment. I don't want to say attachment. A connection to somebody else.
Oh, what do you think it is?
I don't know. I'm asking you. Don't know. I don't know to this question.
We think that we have, we think, oh, I have this special bond with this pet. I have this special bond with this friend. Clearly, it's true in this life. It's like I said, you have a friend that you just don't seem to have to explain yourself to. And, Buddhism would say, well, you've probably met them a lot in past lives, maybe you were pets together, So, all this kind of stuff. But we've had that relationship with every sentient being that exists. Because we've existed since beginningless time. We've had time. And it's wonderful to have those relationships. Nothing wrong with that. We just want to have them with everybody. I think that was my phone. Text, or was it your phone?
Can I get back to consciousness? It's
No,
not energy?
I'm not. Oh, yes. Okay, hold that. You might want to put your notes on the table and put the prayer book on top of the other prayer book. Um, like one of the karmic consequences of having, practice patience, having, all the good qualities that make friendships desirable, helpfulness, generosity, wisdom, all those kind of things. One of the results of that kind of thing can be a good relationship in your future. Like you see couples that seem to have that same kind of bond, and just, for their whole lives. They're married 60 years, they're still feel that bond at the end of 60 years and blah, blah, blah. That's a consequence of past good actions in relationships. So it definitely has meaning, But all sorts of other causes and conditions have to come together that, that manifest with this person. So it can be just two people who both practice that, who have the consequence of meeting that kind of relationship again, happens. Could mean that you recently had a relationship with this person, recent lives. So, that bond is still pretty close. So when you start talking about past and future lives, it gets complicated, But the reason why I'm laughing about whether or not it's attachment is you're exaggerating the good qualities of that bond. It's not saying it doesn't have good qualities, but the fact that we even give it a name, is, an indication. Now, what I think the name really means is, isn't it wonderful that we can be that, simpatico with someone else, that time doesn't seem to matter, that every time you see them, you just pick up where you left off, that's a wonderful result, And who knows, you could be close to enlightenment or Buddhahood, Bodhisattvahood. And so, maybe the two of you have been on that path for a long time, So, it's not like, it's not to belittle good relationships, it's to understand that everything's impermanent, though. Like your stream of consciousness is eternal. It is not permanent. It changes moment to moment. To moment, to moment, to moment, to moment, to moment. We're just a series of mental moments, our consciousness. That's all it is. What we practice, what we, becomes habit. So more of our moments look like that. Just the same way that, we have the habit of being, impatient and angry. We have a lot of moments of those because we keep feeding that energy. But yes, society reflects all of our karmas. If we're living in the society, we're a part of it. It's interdependent. People who are in positions of leadership have, a little more input into it of what it looks like. But they've created the cause to have power. People who have the power to become president of a country, a lot of causes and conditions had to come together for that. I'm sticking my that has hurt it. Okay. It's kind of vast, isn't it? So I say that, the consciousness is not physical. So if energy means something physical to you, it is not that.
Energy doesn't necessarily mean something physical to me.
Okay, so that's why I had to ask.
Yeah.
Because it depends, but like if you look at the science books, energy has it's a physical relationship. Yeah, so I suspected that that's not what you meant. So it really is, it's like when people ask about souls, or it depends on how you define that. What we have is a continuum of mind, of mental moments. We go from the last moment of the previous life to a body in the next life, and the mind is just continuing until we have more realizations. We're not likely to remember our past lives.
But there are people who remember.
If you're born into a culture that accepts rebirth, it's much more likely that you can remember things because your parents don't tell you, oh yeah, get over it. So you're not just dismissed. So you might remember them a little longer because it's a proximity of time too. And it's part of concentration. When you develop your ability to keep your mind focused for as long as you want, you will start developing higher and higher levels of concentration of mind. In fact, you leave the desire realm and you become your mind becomes part of the form realm or the formless realm, whatever. When you start working with the mind like that, then you can start remembering your past lives because it's a matter of concentration. Because the information is in your mind stream. It's not lost. It's just you don't remember because of distraction. Because you're already, you got a new family, you got a new thing going, you have to learn how to walk again and, all that kind of stuff. So, bodhisattvas, Arya bodhisattvas, people who are liberated from this cyclic existence don't have to, be born in a little baby body and then have to grow up and learn how to walk and talk and again. They're finished with that.
But if they want to come back to help others,
They do it through their aspirational prayers, but they can choose to emanate anywhere. This is very hard stuff, because we think things are as they appear to be. We can't see the fact that we're a bunch of atoms and electrons, and we're just moving around. We're not really all that solid, and there's mostly space there. And there are actually more 500 trillion other organisms, in this body that aren't ours, that aren't human. We don't see any of that. That doesn't mean it's not there. We don't have the merit to see a bodhisattva other than in this kind of form. And we can't recognize them, because of our limits, not their limits. This is all very fantastical, It's just that, I think that if, the more you study and contemplate, blah, 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 the more you kind of see what would it mean to be enlightened? What does it mean, to the mind not to be physical? What does that mean? It fits together, but when, you're coming from a place that doesn't believe in any of that, it's just like, no. And it's all cause and effect. It's not magic. It's actually cause and effect. You do this, this is a result, and this is a result of lots of results. And then slowly you become a master of your mind. Not the microphone. So it's just it doesn't continue to seem ridiculous. Right now, and most of the reason why it just sounds fantastical is because we have we grew up in a society with a very different view. You grow up in a society that believes in reincarnation, that believes in past and future lives. None of this stuff sounds so weird to them. Yeah, so it's just, there you go. Go ahead.
So cause and effect, it made me think all week long about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Why did he end up on the cross?
Mm-hmm.
Nailed on.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the path of enlightenment.
Yeah, you could have been. I mean, to me, the story that is told about Christ clearly, if nothing else, was a bodhisattva. I mean, you can't. I mean, here's a person who said, "Yeah, I'm willing to take this if it will purify the sins of all beings." How amazing! We just wouldn't say that God created him. We would say that he emanated in this form in order to teach people who were open to either a Christian path, those teachings, to help them work with their minds. Because we're all different. We have different dispositions of mind. We need many, many religious leaders that teach how to work with our hearts, our minds, because it's not all one size fits all. Yeah.
You were saying, for example, that an Arya Bodhisattva doesn't necessarily have to come back and learn how to walk again and learn those steps. Is it perhaps that they chose a rebirth as a human because that's most helpful to us? And part of having a human rebirth, whether it's the succession of Dalai Lamas or Lamas of the Rinpoche, we know the stories of their childhood. For many of them, we know the stories of how they were discovered as children.
Yeah,
and
but
so we know they went through that.
But that's the thing. It's conventional. They're not suffering. They're not experiencing it the way we experience it because their minds are not stuck in samsara.
So they may have had a childhood and learned how to walk from how.
Well, Shakyamuni Buddha
from the outside.
Most Buddhas do not get born in this kind of realm. Most Buddhas teach in a pure realm to bodhisattvas. Shakyamuni Buddha is one of those extraordinary beings who chose to be born to demonstrate the deeds of a Buddha. This all gets very complicated, but yeah, so but it doesn't mean they are still stuck in samsara. They're just, like you said, that's why we beg, we pray for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to, swiftly reincarnate because we need him. He would say, of course, that, he's nothing special and because that's what they do. Because they can't prove to us that they're at that level. We can't see their minds. We don't have that ability. So we have to take their word for it. We're not going to take their word. So it's for our benefit too. So anyway. All right. How you guys doing at home? Cause and effect. It's all cause and effect.
Can I ask a question, Venerable?
Yes.
Our teachers and Buddhas and highly realized beings, they still pass the suffering of old age and death, right?
They still do what? They had
the suffering of old, because you were saying that they're not suffering, but they still,
now,
as humans, they pass the suffering of old age and death and sickness and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. But if they're no longer in samsara, they're just manifest. Have you ever heard someone talk about how a teacher manifested the aspect of a stroke? What that's saying is they don't have a samsaric mind. So they're not suffering from the stroke. but this body that we can see is having that. Okay. But they're beyond that they're emanating these human bodies for our sake, so we can see them and interact with them and learn from them. But that's what it's meant when they say they manifest the aspect. You know, if they didn't have to manifest in this form for us, none of this would be happening. Does that make sense? And of course, they started where we are. You know, they were in samsara for a very, very long time before they started to study, have realizations, and remove their disturbing emotions and finally realize how things actually exist. Because Arya Bodhisattvas have had that realization. That's why they're called Aryas. So Arya Bodhisattvas are not completely enlightened yet, but they're out of samsara.
Even that's what. Arya Bodhisattva.
No, you can't. Once you removed ignorance, you don't choose to stop. You are liberated.
No, liberated, yes, but in terms of not becoming fully enlightened.
No, but that's just something that different schools say. Mahayana does not buy into that. No one would choose not to be fully enlightened because it's the only way you could benefit all sentient beings. But so is that answer? Nana, are you?
Yes,
So-
it is.
Okay.
It is venerable. Thank you.
Yeah.
One last doubt.
Okay.
So we can say that there's two different events, like the suffering, they don't have the suffering in the mind, but they have the suffering in the body. So they're two kind of two different things. Does that make any sense?
Well, yes, it does make sense. And you will hear some people talk like that. Oh, that's just the suffering body. Just all that kind of stuff. Yeah, because these bodies are totally failure prone, but I'm not even sure they experience the suffering of the body. Do you remember seeing the recordings of Rinpoche in the hospital where he's trying to eat peas? And he was just laughing at how the pea wouldn't stay in his mouth, and it just rolled down. It's just, I don't think we can even begin to imagine what they're experiencing. We can see what is manifesting, what we can see. Okay, so they have, their heart problems. Yeah, she died at, really young, what they say, the explanation to that is it's because the merit of the students wasn't strong enough. Like Shakyamuni Buddha said that he could have, lived like 300 more years if Ananda had just asked him to stay. Notice how we have all these prayers asking them to stay. We learn from Ananda's mistakes. And of course, that was all just to teach us. I mean, but they're not subject to the thing of the body, the physics of the body, because they're beyond that. So, but they can't, our merit, we don't have the merit to see a bodhisattva and to know it's a bodhisattva with all the marks and signs of a bodhisattva. We can't see that, and they can't make us see it because they can't fix our merit. We have to do that work. But like when we finally get to be Arya Bodhisattvas or something, and we're still receiving teachings to remove the last bits to get to enlightenment, we're hearing the teachings in Pure Lands because we can see the Sambhogakaya of a Buddha as opposed to the form body of a Buddha, which is what Shakyamuni Buddha manifested. Just goes on and on and on. And here we are, just trying to kind of keep our heart open a little bit to trust that we have Buddha potential, So we don't need to pack our suitcases with guilt from, the mistakes we make. We're not Buddhas yet, We want to have genuine regret for the harm we do. And it's better to have that every day so you don't have a long list, So, and then, but we all, the last thing you should do every night before you fall asleep is rejoice in all your good qualities, all the little hints of the things you did, you know, the kindnesses or the sweet words or the help, whatever that you did that day. And if you didn't do any, then you go, oh, I missed an opportunity today, you know, I'll do that better tomorrow. So, you know, because sometimes we just hang out at home, you know, and I guess, and you don't forget things like, I didn't drive my car today, which pollutes the atmosphere. Now, it's better if you set that intention in the morning. I'm not driving my car today because I'm taking, yeah, otherwise, you know, it's just an accident. So anyway. Yeah. So anyway. Okay, so let's dedicate. It's a time for dedication. Oh, it's a little early. You have a question?
Your mic turned off.
My mic turned off. Battery must be dead. Because it's on. Yes, it's just dead. I'll scream now. Sorry about that. Any last burning questions? So we can just like think about it all week. Oh, all right. So now this is one of those opportunities to think of, to rejoice in your positive efforts during this time. You know, you've participated, you've listened, you asked questions, you kind of went, oh, I don't know about that, you know, all that stuff. So you're investigating, right? That's what we need to do. So all that provides the cause for positive results in the future. And so we don't want to be greedy with that. We want to share that with all sentient beings. And that's the purpose of dedication prayers is, you know, we're kind of being generous with our virtues by giving the results to other sentient beings. So take a moment to rejoice in your motivation for being here, that you followed through on it, all that stuff. It's all good stuff. Questioning without, you know, where you just don't know. So you're, you know, that's not a negative habit. That's a positive habit. So, okay. And if you ever have to, I'm saying this only because someone had to leave early. When you have to leave early, don't forget to dedicate, you know, on your way out, just in your mind. Okay, whatever positive benefits, may this help benefit those who don't have this opportunity, you know, whatever. But that seals it. So that, and especially if you say until all sentient beings are enlightened, because it lasts until we're all enlightened. So we all appreciate your contributing to that ocean of merit. We can explain this in more detail later. I'm just running on now. Okay. So with a positive mind that's feeling very generous, we'll recite Shantideva's prayers. Can you scooch it up a little? It's not, there we go. Thank you. It's on page 246. Okay. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid. May them be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. Space remains for as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then the prayer for His Holiness's long life. It's on 244. And the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then the request for Rinpoche to return quickly. It's on page, I don't know, 324, 2. Don't know. It's pasted in there. 234. Did people find it on 234? Okay, if it's not there, please set that prayer book aside. We'll fix it. So, okay. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones. Victorious ones mean they've been victorious and becoming enlightened. Okay. Shravakas are, one level of the Buddha seekers, disciples, and Pratyeka Buddhas are self-realizers. So, so that they're just talking about lots of people who are liberated from samsara. So, victorious Lozang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters. That is Lama Tsongkhapa. Lozang is the lineage name of Lama Tsongkhapa, who's the main teacher in this tradition. Okay, so they're referring to, they're asking for his help also. I'm sorry, I just can't help but try to explain it today.
Thank you.
Okay, victorious Lozang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that's never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining in at home. So good to see your faces.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much, Venerable.
Thank you.
Have a good week. See some of you
Have a good
Thursday
week.
night.